The views expressed on this program are those of the producers and individuals appearing on this program and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Sun Prairie Media Center staff, its video service providers, or the staff and elected officials of the City of Sun Prairie.
Hello and welcome to Real Reviews. My name is Jamison Rabbit, and this week I am once again joined by the highly esteemed Mr. Steve Sabatke. Welcome back.
Hey, thank you very much. I saw that Jeff Robbins wore a tie last week.
Yeah, you classed it up.
Yeah, so I got to wear one now too. So thanks, Jeff.
We're setting
Appreciate
the bar.
it. Yeah.
Jeff's gonna wear a tuxedo next time.
I don't have
we're gonna
one
play
of
this
those.
game.
No.
Well, this week we got a bunch of movies. Well, we have some movies to talk about, and we have some movies that we saw separately because we just weren't able to get everything. I've been gone. I've been working at the Wisconsin Film Festival for the last week. You heard me mention it last week that we were just starting it. And so I've got something to talk about from the Film Fest. But first, let's get to something that was decidedly not at the Film Festival.
Not at the festival? Okay.
Not out on the festival circuit. I'm talking about Sonic the Hedgehog 2 from director Jeff Fowler. This is the sequel to the successful video game adaptation that we got a couple of years ago of Sonic the Hedgehog. We have Ben Schwartz back as the voice of Sonic. Sonic and his adopted family are enjoying life after the events of the first film. Everything seems to be calm. We've banished Dr. Robotnik off to a mushroom world, and things seem to be great. But, of course, that would be a boring movie if that's all it was. So Dr. Robotnik is living in exile out on his mushroom planet, attempting to get back and seek revenge when he accidentally summons another creature kind of similar to Sonic, a red creature who loves to punch things. And he is seeking his own revenge. This is a character named Knuckles, who is voiced by Idris Elba. Sonic, for his part, also gets a visitor that we saw in the stinger scene in the first film of a visitor by the name of Tails, who is a flying fox who has been tracking everyone involved since the end of the first film and is a big fan of Sonic the Hedgehog. Tails is a technology whiz and just wants to help Sonic to stay safe, basically. And it's a film that plays like a video game, having to unlock levels as everyone is trying to find this emerald that we see in here that will kind of unlock extraordinary power. And they all get into some adventures and some mishaps, and they interact with the real world. And of course, I failed to mention, but you also have Tom and Maddie, the adopted parents, I guess, of Sonic, played by James Marsden and Tika Sumpter. They're trying to help Sonic and Tails. This brings me to my least favorite part of this film, and both films, is when I'm talking about Tom and Maddie, Maddie's sister Rachel, who is played by Natasha Rothwell, who was my least favorite part of the original film. And I still don't understand why she's a character in these movies, because it seems like her only traits are to yell and be angry for no reason. Her storyline doesn't do anything in either of these films.
No.
And she's kind of the least likable character. She's less likable to me than the supervillain who's trying to control the world. And
Yeah.
in a kid's movie, I don't understand her character.
Well, I don't know if they threw that in there for the benefit of the parents that were
I don't
sitting through
know.
this, but you know, in the middle of the film, there's this subplot that involves the sister-in-law and the guy that she's going to marry.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a distraction. I thought,
It was.
Let's get away from this. I mean, I believe it or not, I was actually more interested in what was going on with Sonic.
Yeah, it just stops the movie cold every time.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know why we have this character and what her motivations are. I don't care.
Yeah, and I didn't see the first film.
Okay.
My guess you did.
Yeah, of course, yes.
So I knew nothing about any of these characters going into this, including Sonic. And, you know, you mentioned that it's based on a video game. I've never played the video game. There were times when I thought I was watching a video game, especially during the chase scenes.
Sure. Yep.
And I don't know if you saw this where you saw the movie, but there was a clip before the movie starts where Sonic says, "Hey kids, if you think you know what's going to happen, don't spoil it for the others."
Oh, really?
Yeah. It was a
I did
little
not see
clip
that.
that came on before the movie where he's telling the kids, don't spoil it, because apparently they know it's going to happen because of the game.
Sure, that makes sense.
So well, the kids at the screening I went to did it anyway.
Oh, man.
They're yelling and things out. Jim Carrey said in a recent interview that he was planning to retire.
Yeah.
And I really hope this is not his last movie.
Although, you know what? I enjoy him in this. Like,
yeah, to me, he was the best part of the film.
Yeah, and he's perfectly over the top acting against cartoons. Like, I enjoy that. He's literally a mustache-twirling villain.
I mean, the parts of the movie that I enjoyed the most were the scenes where he was in the scene.
Yeah.
I mean, he does have some pretty funny lines.
I love when there's a chase and he's running from this ball. And he's like, "Don't let me die like this. It's too derivative."
That's right. I got a laugh out of that. So yeah, I mean, when he's in the film, I actually enjoyed it. I thought it was funny. I mean, the first movie, I guess, was about 90 minutes long. This was about 2 hours.
Mm-hmm.
I thought, I was at a screening where there were a lot of kids, and I thought, wow, maybe kids are going to drop off with interest on this one.
Mm-hmm.
And I was surprised. They
hung in there.
They hung in there. So, I mean, kids must really like this.
It's a big, fun movie, especially for kids. You got all the colors. You got all these characters. I mean, you cut that Rachel character out, you probably save 12 minutes out of the movie. You're fine. I think Ben Schwartz is great as the voice of Sonic. I think these movies are really fun, and it's a low bar to clear, but I think they're the best of the video game to film transfers, which is one of the worst genres of movies. But I think they're good. The animators took a lot of heat before the first one. I don't know if you ever saw this, but when the first movie came out, they put out the trailer, and Sonic had like human teeth in his mouth, and people rebelled.
Oh, really?
Like, that's grotesque.
I never would have noticed that.
And they actually redid the entire movie. They reanimated the whole movie.
Did they really?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
And which is an amazing chore, and made it much more video game. And there's a lot of winks if you're a fan of the franchise. A lot of winks to the video game franchise, of course. But
well, I got a kick out of one scene where Sonic is trying to avoid all these drones that Robotnik is throwing his way. And just out of the blue, they play A Summer Place by Andy Williams.
So random.
And, that connected with me, the old guy.
Little something for you.
Yeah, a little something for me. Didn't last long, but I thought that was kind of cute. So,
yeah, I enjoyed the first one, and I think that I enjoyed this one about the same.
Yeah, I mean,
it's not blowing anyone's doors off.
I mean, it could have been 90 minutes would have been fine enough for me. I'm at 2 hours is a little long.
I agree.
Is it safe to say now that James Marsden is the king of the live-action animated features?
he's seemed to find a niche
got,
there.
Hop and Enchanted, and now these two.
I'm waiting
movies.
for him in Peter Rabbit 3. He'll show up. Yeah. Well, what did you end up giving this Sonic the Hedgehog 2?
Well, probably should have gave it a higher score. I gave it 2.5 stars.
All right.
I mean, it was average for me. It was better than I thought it would be. I stuck with it through the whole thing. I mean, I did enjoy it. So
yeah, I gave it 3 stars. It's enjoyable. I think Jim Carrey's a lot of fun in this.
Yep, he is.
It showcases the talent that we've seen forever. Of just wind him up and let him go. And I agree with you. I hope this isn't where he ends his career.
No.
But he keeps it interesting on the screen, that's for sure. So, the next movie we have on the marquee is one that you went and saw, and I didn't have the opportunity to.
Yeah.
What are we talking about?
Well, buckle your seatbelts, ladies and gentlemen. It is Ambulance, directed by Michael Bay. This film starts out by introducing us to Will. He's an Afghan war veteran played by Yahya Abdul Mateen II. His wife needs experimental cancer surgery. However, the insurance company won't pay for it. So he calls on his brother, Danny, played by Jake Gyllenhaal, to ask for a loan. And his visit just happens to fall on the day that Danny and his clueless-looking gang plan to rob a Los Angeles bank. I mean,
right away, I like the synopsis.
Doesn't that always happen? You go to your brother for a loan, and he's out the door going to rob a bank. So, what does Will do? Well, of course, he makes the appropriate decision to join his brother in the heist. And the robbery goes horribly wrong when a cop enters the bank to ask the bank teller out on a date. There's a huge shootout outside of the bank because there's a special ops unit of the LAPD that just happened to be there staking the bank out. How they knew about it, That's plot development. I mean, this movie doesn't worry about that. The shootout's essentially a copycat version of what you saw in the movie Heat.
One of my favorites.
Heat does it much better.
Yeah.
So Danny and Will end up hijacking an ambulance for the getaway, and in the ambulance is an EMT named Cam, played by Isaac Gonzalez, and the cop who is now wounded. Danny and Will take the two hostage. By the way, we learned that nobody wants to work with Cam because she's a loose cannon.
Oh, no.
So they take over the ambulance, and then what happens after that? It's literally a 90-minute or more car chase through the streets of L.A. Every cop car imaginable is chasing them. I think OJ's Bronco Drive, but with a lot of damage, destruction, and mayhem, or in this case, bayhem.
Ooh, it looks like an episode of Chips right there, the way that car flipped.
About halfway through the chase, you get to see Cam perform surgery on the cop's spleen while she's being coached by two surgeons who are out on the golf course. And
Sounds great.
about the only time there's a break is when Danny and Will decide to listen to some music during the chase, and they sing along to Sailing by Christopher Cross.
Stop it. You made that up. No way.
I'm anticipating a huge comeback for Cross because of this. Jake Gyllenhaal, way over the top in this one. We've come a long way from Homer and October Sky. A lot of camera work by drones. They're swooping up, down, all over the place. It was making me nauseous. When Danny and Will in the beginning were arguing about whether or not Will was going to be in the robbery, the camera's circling around them. I was getting sick to my stomach.
I have a question for you about this.
Yeah.
So
I got to catch my breath.
So a couple of weeks ago, I thought it was odd timing. Michael Bay came out and said, by the way, some of the CGI effects in this movie look like, now paraphrasing his word, look like crap. Which I thought was odd marketing for his movie. To say, hey, some of the CGI looks really terrible.
Well, I guess they only spent $40 million on this thing.
That's actually impressive for Michael Bay.
For Michael Bay is, a Kmart special.
Well, there were no robots in this movie.
No,
right?
no robots.
Yeah.
I mean, lots of damaged cars.
Yeah.
The best performance in the movie, I think, came from a dog called Nitro.
No.
The dog is actually Michael Bay's dog.
Okay. Nepotism at its finest.
And I read how he got really stressed putting the dog in the movie. There's no star power on the law enforcement side, which I thought may have made this a little bit better.
Yeah, that feels like a miss. So you're basically
usually you get a big name who's kind of leading the chase here. I mean, these are actors that you've probably seen. You
somebody
recognize
who's got
their
a personal
face,
thing with Jake Gyllenhaal's character, maybe.
but you don't know their names. I mean, you've seen them before. And this is, I guess, a remake of a 2005 Danish film of the same name. But I read where Michael Bay didn't watch that movie or read the screenplay.
Wait a minute. Jake Gyllenhaal made a movie last year that was a remake of a 2006 Danish film where he was a 911 operator.
Yeah. Okay.
Is this Jake Gyllenhaal's new thing? Just getting Danish films?
I guess. I read where Bay got sick of sitting in his house during the pandemic. He called up his agent and says, "Hey, I got to get out there and shoot something fast." And this is what you get. Yeah. And so this is what you get. You get mayhem and bayhem with ambulance. It was exhausting. At about the 2-hour mark, I was asking myself, when is this going to end? I don't care how it ends.
How long did this run?
It's about almost 2.5 hours.
Oh, my.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
And most of it is the car chase.
Yeah. That's tough.
And
I mean, Heat is 3 hours, but Heat it gives you a lot.
And just think of every cliche that you can think of with car chases. I mean, there's the scene where they go through the big barrels that have the water in, and the water goes all over the place.
Classic.
They're in Los Angeles. They're down in that concrete basin where the river is.
Of course, you have to have
going
that.
through that. You got to have that. It's just.
And Jake Gyllenhaal, no good, because I love Jake Gyllenhaal. But the last couple movies I've seen him in, I felt like he was kind of phoning it in a little bit. I don't know. I know when we talked at the beginning of the year, I believe Dan Presser was on, and we were talking about our most anticipated movies. This was on his list.
Was it really?
Yeah. Just off the star power of Jake Gyllenhaal, I believe.
I mean, I'm not a big Michael Bay fan.
Yeah.
I thought The Rock was probably his best movie.
I think it would have been hilarious if you came out as a huge Michael Bay fan.
No.
Love all those Transformers movies.
Well, I remember taking my daughter to the first one, which wasn't bad, but then the ones after that weren't that great.
Yeah.
So,
all right, final score here. What did we end up giving Ambulance?
oh, I gave it 1 star.
Wow.
I think it was for the dog, Nitro.
You got a soft spot for Nitro.
Yeah, and it was just there weren't any breaks. It was just over and over and over with this car chase, and I mean, yeah, it's kind of a love letter to Los Angeles. You get to see a lot of L.A.
Yeah, sure. I mean, if you're driving through it for 2 hours,
Yeah,
you can
so
see a good chunk of it.
go watch The Rock instead.
Well, it's moments like these where I feel bad that I made you go see this on your own, but I also feel selfishly kind of good for
Saw
not
it
seeing
on the same day as Sonic the Hedgehog, and I mean, Sonic was better.
Nobody expected that. Oh, man. All right. The film I have for you this week comes from, it was one of the films I saw at, again, the Wisconsin Film Festival, which, by the way, I got stopped by somebody there. I'm sorry I did not catch your name, but to whoever it is that claims to be a viewer of this show, it was nice chatting with you. We always appreciate knowing someone's out there watching it.
You got a fan.
Got one.
Nice.
Her fiance. But anyways.
Did you mention me at all?
You know what?
No,
I don't think your name
okay.
came up. I'm sorry.
All right. Thought I'd ask.
The film I'm talking about, though, is a film called Klondike, which is a Ukrainian film from writer-director Mirna Ergobak. It is set against actual events on the Ukrainian border with Russia in 2014. Of course, very timely right now of what's happening. That was the trailer.
That was a fast trailer.
Woo, buddy, look out.
Wow.
This is about a Ukrainian couple, Tolik and Irka. Irka is very pregnant. They live in the Donbass region of the Ukraine. It opens with this beautiful conversation between this couple discussing how they want to improve their home before the baby comes. It's a nice, personal, quiet conversation between them. And that is broken by a mortar shell hitting their house and taking out one wall, the wall of their living room, completely.
Boy.
And that kind of sets the tone for this movie. Irka being heavily pregnant, but really undeterred against this oncoming war. And even as her fellow townsfolk are all fleeing to the next city over in safety, she refuses to leave her homestead. Her husband saying, we need to get to the hospital in the next town. You know, we can't have a baby here. And she says, I'm not leaving my house. I refuse to leave my home. I don't care about these people. When one wall of her home is decimated, she just begins sweeping the debris and dusting the couch because this is her home. She's not leaving. Tolik, the husband, is friendly with some anti-Ukraine separatists in this area, one of whom has stolen his vehicle and is using it to help the Russians. And Tolik's only concern really is, can I get my car back? He may or may not be a sympathizer himself. Either way, he's kind of fallen prey to these Russian sympathizers. He's willing to give them things that his family needs in order to keep them safe. And he kind of sees it, he justifies it more along the lines of, well, they're going to take it by force if I don't give it to them. Whatever I can do to keep them safe. There's really a third character in this film, Irka's brother, whose name is Yarek, who hates Tolik. He hates him because he sees him as a Russian sympathizer. He sees him as not able to take care of his sister. But when really, Tolik is just not political in either way. He doesn't really care. He just wants to get his car back. He wants to fix his satellite dish so he can watch football. And meanwhile, there's one huge event that turns everything on its ear, and this is a real-world event, is when a Malaysian passenger plane is shot down in their backyard, basically.
Yeah.
Killing all 300 civilians aboard, and this kind of brings all types of people to their farm. We have gawkers, there's looters who are coming to just steal from the dead bodies. There's armed individuals of various tribes coming to lay claim to things with various political motives. And saddest of all, there's a Dutch couple who shows up searching for their missing daughter. And that's really heart-wrenching to deal with. And the film is really interesting. It doesn't give you a lot of explanations for the whys of things, why things are happening, why people are showing up as they are. A lot of it's through context clues. A lot of it's through this beautiful cinematography of this land, and it's really the strength of the character of Irka, this woman who is about to give birth in this movie. And she kind of stands in bright contrast to against the broken walls of her home. and she's standing there strong. And even as these armed soldiers are coming into her home as she's giving birth, she's resilient. And the film ends with one of these really, I don't want to tell you the end, it ends with one of the more visceral scenes that I've seen, kind of setting life and death against each other, that really had me really hurting. And but it's a beautiful film. It's a lot of long, wide open shots of the countryside, and you see off in the distance, it feels so peaceful. You see this countryside, and then off in the distance, out of focus, you'll see a vehicle coming, and just this sense of dread comes over you, because it reinforced to me, and very timely for that same area right now, that
Right.
you don't know when you're just sitting there and all of a sudden a mortar is going to land on your
Yeah,
house. And
yeah.
this is the same thing. Any vehicle, you're like, well, that's going to be trouble. They're coming from somewhere. And you just never feel safe, even while watching this. And what was really interesting to me, though, was that Malaysian plane really, it's a real world event in this larger story of war and this personal story of like the struggling marriage. But it was almost like a red herring, almost. Like the Malaysian flight going down served to bring some characters in, but it wasn't like the point of the movie.
Okay.
Which I
All
kind
right.
of was thrown by. But it's a movie that really moved me quite a bit. It's called Klondike.
I'm curious. Excuse me. I'm curious to know. I mean, how did this movie end up in the lineup of the film festival?
We get a lot of foreign films.
Okay.
Especially this year because of just the state of Hollywood over the last couple of years. But yeah, it's one that our programmers, Mike King and Jim Healy, go out and they go to around the world to film festivals and screen films. This is one that they were very impressed by and recommended that I sit and watch. Like, make sure you see this one. And yeah, I was really blown away. And those around me, we showed it twice, and both showings, it was a very somber crowd walking out.
I would imagine, yeah.
With some interesting discussions afterwards about this. And so it's another film of the slate. And as we're recording, the Wisconsin Film Festival is wrapping up tonight. But this is our 24th annual. We have it every year. And it's films like these that always tend to show up. They're interesting fare that a lot of times you have to kind of work to track down. But I'm hoping this gets some distribution so that everyone can see it.
I mean, is this a fairly new film?
It's 2022.
Okay.
Yeah, so a lot of these films that we get haven't even gotten distribution. They go on the festival circuit hoping somebody will pick them up. Some of
Okay.
them are films, we also had The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent.
The
Nicolas
Nicolas
Cage's
Cage
new
movie, yep.
That's shown there. That's obviously already got legs under it. Some of these films are from small filmmakers who come and do a Q&A, and they basically travel with the film on the circuit, hoping somebody will say, hey, I'd like to distribute that for you. So, but Klondike, I ended up giving 4.5 out of 5 stars.
Oh, wow.
It's
Okay.
really, really powerful, really great film.
I'll have to watch that.
There's another film, real quickly, though. I have a minute.
Sure.
Just want to tell you about, it's a film called The Timekeepers of Eternity that just came out. It's directed, in air quotes, by Aristoteles Maragos. He took the 1995 Stephen King miniseries, The Langoliers, which was a 3-hour miniseries. Wasn't that great.
Okay.
He edited it down to a 90-minute story and then printed out every frame of the movie onto paper, black and white paper, every frame, and then did this editing technique, and then photographed all these pieces of paper, every frame, and basically did a stop motion of this movie, of all these actors, Bronson Pinchot, David Marsh, all these guys. And then as you're watching this movie, the things will tear, the paper will tear, the screen will crumple up, and another scene the next scene will appear behind it. It's the most ambitious technique I've ever seen. I've never heard or seen. He printed the frames out on paper and tore them and manipulated the paper.
And it looked like an
And
actual movie?
It's a movie. You're watching the movie, but
Okay.
Bronson Pinchot's face, he's talking, and all of a sudden there's a tear, and the piece of paper moves, and then something slides in behind it. And this guy spent hundreds of hours putting this movie together, and it played like a Twilight Zone movie. It took what was kind of a boring miniseries and turned into a much more tension-filled movie, and one of the more visually ambitious projects I've ever seen. It was unbelievable. So it's one that is, again, making the festival circuit, hoping it comes out. It's called The Timekeepers of Eternity, and I highly recommend, even if you don't care about, like, I wasn't even paying attention really to what was happening in the movie as much as I was just watching the screen. Like,
Yeah.
what is he doing? And there's a tear, and you
Well, I
watch
never
the
heard of
pig.
anything like that before.
I haven't either. I read the synopsis in our film guide, and I said, I don't quite understand what they're saying. I have to see it for myself.
But it was actually from the TV series.
And I was blown away. He took the TV
Okay.
series and did his
'Cause
own.
I vaguely remember the series.
Yeah, and did his own reimagining of it using their stuff on paper. It was.
Well, I mean,
Man.
how many movies did you end up seeing at the festival?
So he showed like 130 movies.
Please tell me you didn't see all 130.
No. I mean, I think the most I've ever seen at one festival was like 28, 30 movies.
Oh.
This year I was not. This year because I work the film festival, so I wasn't able to just sit and watch as many as I would like to. I watched parts of a lot of movies. I think I really watched beginning to end. So far, five or six movies. I'll get a couple more in today before the fest ends, but I watched a lot of parts of movies, had a lot of discussions with people about movies that I didn't get to sit down for. And so I have a nice long list of films that I have to try and track down now as well. Because there's so many. I watched some interesting documentaries.
So was the Nicolas Cage movie the one with the most commercial appeal? to
Yes,
it?
yeah. And
Okay.
people came out ranting and raving about how great it was, and
Yeah, it's
kicked
going to get a
myself.
lot of good reviews.
And that's a movie that'll be coming out in a week and a half from now. And
I know one that I want to see, and we talked about it before we went on the air here, was the documentary about the progressive rock group King Crimson.
And that's one that I did get to sit and watch.
Yeah.
That was a really great documentary too. Very interesting.
That's on my list.
And like all great music documentaries, you don't have to be a fan of the group to really appreciate it. They
Okay.
really do a good job of presenting the whole picture, and it's just people and bands, and there's always a great story. And yeah, that one was great. And I expect that one will be out on one of your streaming platforms fairly
I
soon.
hope so. I really want to see it, but this sounds like something that I need to participate in.
I think next year we need to get you in there.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like a lot of great stuff.
A lot of fun films, a lot of great stuff. So the Wisconsin Film Festival has always been great to me. Every year I get to chat about a bunch of fun ones, and it gives everyone, I think, that goes to it homework to try and find other ones, because it's impossible. I think the most you can possibly see is 34 movies during the festival.
Okay.
I think that's like the maximum number. We do have people that push that number. It hurts after a while.
Yeah, I would imagine.
I get to the point where I start to
That's
detest
a lot.
watching
That's a lot.
movies.
But yeah, you can find some real gems.
You really can. Absolutely, you can. All right, let's move ahead with what we have coming soon, the weekend of April 22nd. We have a few movies here. Boy, one of them was talk about my most anticipated list. One of these was high on my list. The first one, The Northman, Robert Eggers' new film for A24, a film of revenge being sought by a Viking prince. Stars Alexander Skarsgård, Nicole Kidman, Willem Dafoe, Anya Taylor-Joy, Ethan Hawke. I'm so excited for this movie. This is like right up my alley.
You like blood and mayhem.
I do. I
Okay.
love stories of Vikings and revenge. And yeah, as soon as I saw this first trailer, I was like, I have to see this. It's another movie, one that we just mentioned, The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, Nicolas Cage's new film, which I've heard nothing but great things about. This will be finally coming out to a theater near you on April 22nd to check out. And then lastly, an animated movie called The Bad Guys, animated film about classic bad animals in animated films attempting to rehab their image. You got a wolf, a snake, a shark, a tarantula, piranha. Really fun voice cast involved in here. And that will be playing in theaters near you the weekend of April 22nd. Before we move further, we want to thank our sponsor, Marcus Theaters, The Palace here in Sun Prairie. Thank you for sponsoring this program and showing us this movies. Sometimes 2 in a day if you're ambitious. We do appreciate that. Next week, I'm going to be talking about movies such as Fantastic Beasts 3, Father Stew, and a streaming film called Choose or Die. I'll be joined by Michael Selesky to do all of that. But, sir, thanks again for sitting down, enjoying this.
Thank
and,
you.
Watching a 1-star movie.
Yeah.
Can't all be winners.
Love the 1 stars.
Yeah. Well, until next week, I'm Jamison.
And I'm Steve.
Thanks for watching.